Hello, welcome to another episode of Silent Startups with me, Varun Bumidi. If you're a first time listener, don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. All links can be found in show notes. The best way to stay informed is to sign up for a weekly newsletter via our Substack. Today we chat with Harsh Shah, an alumnus of IIT Bombay and a co-founder of Fynd. Fynd offers a technology solution to retail merchants that helps them manage their inventory and sales across various channels. Fynd is unique. They were one of the very few direct investments Google had made, and then in 2019, Reliance acquired a majority stake in the company, buying out all investors. A very interesting story, and to take us through this journey, we talked to Harsh. Let's say hi. Fynd, if you guys have been tracking startup news, was recently acquired by Reliance as part of their group of portfolio companies that are doing some amazing things in the Indian startup ecosystem. I've actually met Harsh way back in the day when Fynd was called Shopsense. Shopsense
right.
did a lot of different things, and they've also pivoted along the way, rode the wave of e-commerce. So I'm going to get into a lot of those things with Harsh. But Harsh, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Varun. Always a pleasure. It's always been great meeting you, running into you. And when I saw your email yesterday, I was like, hell yeah.
Awesome. No, this is going to be fun because I have a soft spot for e-commerce, having spent enough time in it, and having seen the early days of e-commerce, right? And
Right.
that's I think that's when one of your investors had asked me to kind of talk to you guys because of my experience with Jabong. So
That's right.
that was our first interaction, and it seems like eons ago because like I think we were all children at that time, just trying to learn.
Absolutely. I think we still are. I think it's great to be a child.
Yeah, well, that's the attitude you need to have. Always be curious, a child, right?
Absolutely.
Harsh, so there's so much to talk about on what's happening in e-commerce today, and a market that was so crowded in 2012, 2013, where every
Yep.
second startup and was an e-commerce company, because that was low hanging fruit, right? In the sense, the first thing in anywhere in the world is selling products and creating commerce online, and something that's physical, tangible, was kind of the way that an audience gets used to the internet, and that's really what we saw in that phase of 2011, 12, 13. A lot of companies kind of fizzled out, did well. Shopsense was one of those, starting out. You wanted to create an e-commerce platform, but you had a different take on it, right? And you and your co-founders had just graduated from IIT, and you thought this is a great problem to solve. And can you take me through that journey and give a quick
Sure.
introduction to Shopsense, now Fynd?
Absolutely. So, we spent a few years out of IIT actually, working in consulting. I think Farooq and I both spent predominantly the large part of the year in the US, consulting for companies in multiple sort of sectors, e-commerce, not actually e-commerce, retail being one of them. And I think a large part of our work was to use data to figure out how to make companies better, right? And this is 2010, 2011, 2012. And we see this sort of e-commerce boom happening in India, and the boom is on the back of course, great penetration of the internet, and people buying online, and of course COD, being the sort of innovative kid on the block. And we saw how e-commerce was able to actually serve consumers much better, purely because of the fact that they knew consumers better, right? Whether it was what you bought, but also what were you considering to buy, which led to what you ended up buying. And we saw this to be like a great sort of white space in the physical retail environment. And we said that why isn't something like this possible offline. And our focus was I mean, at that time, still today, a large part of shopping happens offline, but they don't have the sort of tools and sort of the capability to do what e-commerce does. And of course, e-commerce started off with being more sort of catalog shopping rather than actually experiential shopping, and it still is to a large extent today. And we said, is there a way for us to sort of merge the best of both worlds? So our take back then was, can we use digital shopping tools in the physical retail environment to try and create a sort of merging of the best of both worlds in the store? So Shopsense back then was taking technology to the physical retail store, and bringing in the sort of advantages of catalog shopping, infinite scroll, filtering, sharing with friends, and all of those things in the physical store.
So that was your first pitch to investors, saying
That's right.
This is what we're doing, and we're saying that in a physical store, can I give additional tools that will connect the what was the pitch? Because I think it's like, because it's kind of odd to then go into a store and then have to do an online purchase, right? If I'm hearing you correctly.
Right. I mean, so the idea is that you're not doing a online purchase in the store, but you're essentially using abilities like sorting, filter, search, sharing in the store. And so when you walk into a store, you've got so much of the merchandise all around you, and you're probably interacting with 20% of the merchandise only, right? And a lot of times you're probably getting help from the store associate, who's maybe incentivized to sell you something because that's higher margin for the brand and so on and so forth. But you tend to get lost within that store. I mean, if you walk into a Shopper Stop, you've got like 4 stories, 5 stories of products, and you're like, I know where to begin, and I'm just going to go to the first track in front of me. But if you were able to sort of do the whole sorting, filtering, sharing, recommending thing inside that store, how would that change your shopping behavior, right? As a customer. So the idea was actually to do that and to actually create like a consumer engagement solution within the store, which would lead to shopping, right? Whether you purchase it in the store or whether you sort of take it online and say, what, okay, I probably don't find something out here, but let me just come back later. So the idea was to actually help the consumer and the store associate in the store to arrive at a shopping decision through the consideration journey as well.
Okay.
That was the pitch to sort of investors and even retailers per se.
Yeah, so that was my question actually. So to the retailers who wanted to have this setup, could you explain a little bit about the setup and what did they get, and what did they buy into?
So the setup was very simple. We told the investors, the retailers, that today you are essentially engaging with your customer only at the point of sale, which is at the end of the shopping journey, right? I mean, yes, you do have store associates who are sort of talking to the consumers, but in most stores, I think the customer walking in is at least 2 or 3 levels higher than the store associate, right? In terms of the products you use, income level, economic background, and so on and so forth. And it's usually you asking the store associate for certain clarifications on the product, right? I think apart from electronics, in any other category you walk into, you're probably more knowledgeable than the store associate who's serving you in the store, right? And we went to the retailers and said that, hey, how can you expose a larger sort of merchandise to the customer? How can your store associates actually get trained to better serve these consumers, right? Whether it's simple product information, whether it's simply knowing what's actually present in the store today. Can this sort of setup help you with that, right? So we said, take a large 32-inch touchscreen, 40-inch touchscreen, or an iPad, and use that as a way to engage with the consumer. I'm not saying that you get the consumer directly on these touchscreens in the store, but during this consumer's shopping journey, can you introduce this sort of tablet or large touchscreen to the consumer to help them better narrow down their selection? And we added sort of great bells and whistles where we said that if you want the shirt, here are these sort of 5 trousers which will look very good with this particular shirt, or vice versa. And not just a standard carousel recommended products which go well with that, but an actual visual representation of a shirt and a pant, sort of underneath that. I mean, in a Being Human store, this visual representation was actually on Salman Khan. So you could change Salman's shirts and pants and see, what sort of look looks good. So it's a mix of sort of consumer engagement, a wow factor, along with commodity toolkits of search, recommendation engines, filtering, sorting, sharing with your friends, looking at sort of inventory availability, and so on and so forth.
So there's a little bit of interactivity as well in that.
Absolutely. So we said there are two aspects out of it out here. Right? There's one aspect which says that, hey, I want to engage with the product on a deeper level. And the second is, even if the product's not there, I still want to know that the product's there in some other store of yours so that I can actually get that.
From the perspective of e-com, right? I'm guessing you were not categorizing yourself as e-commerce at that point.
No,
right? Because the sale itself is not happening on Shopsense.
Right.
You're adding a layer of analytics and data, and offering a service that would enable the user to make a better purchase decision. And and so as a retailer, the value that I would get is hopefully either selling more products to this individual.
That's right.
Or ensuring that a product sale happens because he's able to identify the product that he's looking for.
And the third piece is that even if the product's not there, I'm still able to close a transaction by showing him a product which I have in some other store of mine.
Okay, so he ensures that the sale happens even though it's not maybe physically present.
Yeah, that's true. So you're sort of plugging a loss of sale because of out of stock products, right? Or just because you don't have that product in that store's merchandise.
And in this phase, I remember in the 2012, 2013 time frame, a lot of retailers were not embracing e-commerce as such, right? While in when at Jabong, we had a hard time convincing brands to come online to begin with, because they didn't have an online strategy, even to work with an aggregator or a marketplace, right? They were not keen to put their stock online because they felt it would cannibalize their store sales, which was even more mind-blowing. Say, hey, this is incremental business that you wouldn't otherwise get somebody to walk into your store, right? Because this was clear for non-metros, etc., where people were buying, actually taking out their debit cards or doing cash on delivery, like you said, and making those purchases. So if the sale or transaction here, there's no incremental revenue that's happening online without the person walking in, right?
The only incremental part is essentially, so the only incremental part is the plugging of the loss of sale, right? So that's definitely an incremental part. And the second is, so if you actually look at how a store's conversion funnel works, right? I mean, take out restaurants, but a clothing store or a footwear store, out of every 100 people that walk into the store, probably 10-12% walk out within the first 30 seconds itself, right? Then you've got the remaining sort of 85 guys that are there, or people that are there. I would say 40 of them probably walk out without even trying anything, right? So now you've got a remaining about 45 consideration set. Maybe about 20 of those will try, but not end up buying anything at all. Or actually try and it wouldn't even enter the consideration of buying, right? So 20 goes away there. And then the remaining sort of 20-25, there'll be 5-6 of them who will try it, maybe consider it, but think that, I'm not really fitting in this particular product well, or, I like a medium, but there's only a large or a small out here. And there's only remaining 15% people who are actually buying something. So throughout this funnel, there are two aspects of it, right? There's an engagement piece, which you're saying that, hey, can I move this 15% to a 20-25% by sort of engaging the consumer better? Because you've got to understand these are sort of non-standardized categories, right? These are want-based categories where the decision making is happening based on your experience with that product in that store, right? So if it's an experience that's better, you're going to end up making a better sort of purchase decision out here. So the first aspect was, can we move this sort of 15 to a 20-25? And the second one was that the guys who are between the 15 and the 25 who are not finding the right size of the color, can you sort of, manage them as well? So the idea was that this is incremental sales in the fact that I'm helping you increase your conversion numbers. And I'm also helping you plug a loss of sale because of the product not being available.
I'm guessing this is where the retailer said, you know what, okay, this is something that we're willing to pay for. And what was the business model then? Because it's easy to say I'll take a commission, right? It's easy to say I'll take a commission and then have inventory sale. That's a typical retail transaction, right? Sure. This is completely off.
Yeah. So I mean, there's definitely one of the reasons why we had to pivot away from that model, right? Okay. I mean, at the end of the day, we were not sitting on the transaction, right? So there was a lot of anecdotal evidence of whether it worked or whether it didn't work, depending on whether the retailers had a mood to pay you or didn't want to pay you, right? It's essentially as simple as that. And we would definitely show all the session information, right? So we would know that so many people actually ended up using the application, spent so much time on it, checked out so many products, and so on and so forth. But we were never able to actually link it to a particular specific transaction that happened in the store. So initially, the business model was we were charging a license fee on a per month basis, and we didn't get too many sort of pushbacks on the license fee model per se. We were charging anywhere between 10,000 to 15,000 rupees per store per month. But there was definitely two aspects which sort of were not scalable per se, right? So one is, of course, we were not sitting on the transaction. So there's no way for us to accurately measure and attribute impact to our product, right, in the store. That's number one. Number two is this whole setup costs anywhere between 30,000 to a lakh rupees, depending on what type of screen you took, what size of screen you took, and that's a capex that the retailer has to put in. So if I'm Nike and if I have 400 stores, I need to shell out 4 crores for this capex across all these 400 stores, right? So we sort of hit sort of a kind of ceiling out here where we knew it was working and we were profitable because we had a good 200 stores who were giving us 10,000 rupees per month. Right? So we had a good 2 crore revenue coming in sort of every month. And expenses were sort of, definitely back in those days, lesser than that. But it was not sort of scaling beyond that. I mean, for example, Nike, we did about 50 stores for the first 2 years. And even though they had about 600 stores. And because they just kept saying that, hey, our capex cycles aren't there yet right now. So we can't really sort of put in there. Or, if we push to increase the 10,000 to 15,000 rupees, they'll say, hey, but what's the attribution like? What's the impact? I called up this store. He said, nahi, theek hai, chala, but nahi chala. So, those sort of issues happen. So we said, this is probably not working as much as we sort of hoped.
So the delta for Shopsense itself was not there, right? That means,
we were not able to accurately show the delta. I mean, even if it was there, I mean, you couldn't sort of prove it without doubt that yes, it's there.
So did you track like store on store sales and was that not attributable
to That's right. So even though we could track it, it was not attributed back to us because they'd say, oh, of course, yes, it's sale, but, we did this sort of campaign outside in the mall. And that's why it sort of, got more people walking in. So we were not able to attribute accurately to this. I mean, sure, one thing that we were able to show is that there were X number of people who actually used this particular machine, used this application, and they spent X amount of time on it. And they sort of, discovered X number of products out here, right? And the more time you spend, it's a proxy for, how engaged you sort of kept the consumer there. So we were able to sort of, look at that. But whether that actually resulted in a sale, there was no sort of direct correlation that we could actually get out of it.
In this time, you kind of pivoted to a kind of a hyper-local model, right?
That's right. So this is sort of early 2015, right?
Yeah.
And we said, there are these 2 or 3 different constraints to the business, right? There's one constraint is, we're not sitting on the transaction. Second constraint is that there's a large capex involved. The third constraint was that every different retailer has a different application that they want to be developed because it has to match the look and feel of that brand's communication and the store decor and so on and so forth, right? And the fourth was the fact that these license models doesn't really work well in India when you've got collection cycles that you've got to run with the retailers at the end of every month, every quarter, and the flow of sort of money, of the flow of revenues not really in line with what the invoicing of revenue is.
So how did you
So these are sort of the
transition?
4-5 things which is sort of.
Yeah, how did you transition? Right?
Yeah,
Like
so I
now you
think,
have this inventory. You have a lot of this inventory
right,
that's there in your system, which is coming from your existing
right,
setup that's already there. Um,
absolutely.
so did that enable you to say, you know what, let's just show this to people and see if we're able to bring in additional transactions?
Absolutely. So the way it worked is that I think one of the core things that we institutionalized right from day one is that we are going to get uh, inventory information from these stores in an automated way. And so we're not going to get someone who will manually control the stock depth in a particular store of a particular product. Right? We're always going to have APIs that we will integrate into the existing retail systems. And I think that was the key bedrock on which sort of even today we're built on. So he said we have this inventory information, which is accurate understanding of what is present in the store. The first sort of step happened where on the endless aisle product, we wanted, stores or the store associates wanted to see that, hey, you know what, sir or ma'am, yes, we don't have your size right now here with us, but it's there in some other store. Why don't you just, give us the money right now and we'll ship it, or we'll send our guy from that store to your house and deliver the product to you. Right. So this is sort of end of 2014. And we're getting a bunch of clients, the likes of Nike, Nautica, who are doing this for the consumers, right? Where you're sort of taking the transaction on this, Shopsense application. You're taking the payment in cash in your store, and then you're telling the consumer that, hey, either you can go to that store, or you can come back here in a couple of days, or I can get one of the store guys to pick up the product from that store and deliver it to your house. Right? So that was the sort of the first movement into taking the transaction, taking the money, and shipping the product to the consumer. Right? And then this happens towards the end of 2014 towards the start of 2015. And that's also the time where the hyperlocal guys really take off, right? So you've got the Grofers and the Tiny Owls and the Roadrunners and the Swiggies who are sort of in the market saying, hey, you know what, you want something close by? Just place an order and I'll ship it to you from that store. So we take a leaf out of that book and we said, hey, if you can do that for food and for groceries, which is what Grofers and Swiggy and Tiny Owl was doing, why can't we do that for sort of fashion and lifestyle products? We anyways have the store inventory. Why can't we just expose that on a consumer-facing application?
That's it's very interesting, right? Because a company's journey is not a straight line. Especially when you're starting in technology, you're trying to find what customers want, and that also meant that your technology has also kept up with the demands of what the customers want, right?
Right.
From a there are three co-founders at Shopsense, and you're obviously seeing the changing trend in the market, and you're saying, you know what, that's probably better for the future of the business. But it can't be an individual decision, right? It's being discussed,
right,
and you're debating. And can you tell us a little bit of the dynamic? How you guys built that, and what's pivoting is a big decision as well, because you're saying, okay, I could either go this route, deploying more capital, asking brands, because brands are paying. Because if you look at it from an outsider's perspective, brands are paying, right? Brands are paying for the units in the store.
That's right.
You're getting a monthly rental for that unit.
Right.
Now people call it SaaS. You have
right. That's right.
And that's where value is at, right? If you fast forward to a Minority Report kind of a scenario, you walk into a store and store tells you, looking at your iris, that this is something that you could sell. So
absolutely.
Was that the future you're looking at? Because I'm sure these debates happen. So I would love to know.
Yeah, so we were always looking at the future. I mean, for us, even when we started Shopsense, the idea was we're going to bring technology to the store, right? So, of course, the Minority Report one was like the gold standard of where it can go. But yes, it was definitely building blocks in order to reach there, right? So whether you're getting consumer information, you're getting product information, you're getting behavior patterns, you're getting sales patterns, and so on and so forth. But I think where we got stuck, honestly, was like I said, I think the business model and the capex requirements didn't really support the scale up at that point of time, right? As you said, yes, it was difficult because the brands were paying us. We were profitable, right? I mean, it's not as though we were sort of, losing money hand over fist. We had investors back then as well. So, I mean, we had the likes of K Capital and Powai Lake Ventures who were invested in us. But even they, I mean, everyone understood that, if you want to really scale up quickly, this is probably not the best way of doing that. And of course, 2014, 15 SaaS was not what sort of Indian companies or even Indian VCs were interested in as well, right? Yeah. And the other really sort of jarring understanding was that you are not sitting on the transaction. That was super, super important in retail specifically. And B, you are sort of collecting. You have this whole collections machinery to collect your revenue from. Right? So I would say these are the two major sort of roadblocks that we had to face. And we said that as consumers are moving online, and if we have access to inventory, is this something that we can try out as well? Right? One of the thoughts, of course, amongst the three of us as well as our investors, and we had capital in the bank at that point of time as well. This sort of early 2015 was, what do you guys want to really do? So we said, we need not stay married to retail as a sector. We'll explore anything and everything. We sort of went back to the drawing board. We looked at everything from, car rentals like a Zoom car, or, selling, socks online like a D2C brand, education, payments as well. We looked at everything. But then we came back and we said, hey, you know what? While that's true, we could possibly do a bunch of these things. We don't believe that we've given up on the problem of technology in retail, right? Probably there needs to be a different solution. Probably there needs to be a different revenue model. Probably there needs to be a different business model. There probably needs to be a different go-to-market. But the problem of technology in retail still exists, right? And let's figure out another angle to this problem.
You mean find another solution right, to get to the same need. So what was the North Star? Yeah, what is the North Star need that you were solving for? How did you?
So the North Star need was how do we use technology in the physical retail space in order to improve or increase sales? This was the simple North Star. And that sales could come from the store, the sales could come from outside the store. Right? That technology could be a consumer engagement piece, it could be an endless aisle piece, it could be a payments piece, it could be anything. But the North Star was how do we get technology in the physical retail environment in order to improve sales?
What were some of the other ideas?
I mean, the other ideas, like I said, one was selling socks online. There was, I think this was also the time where you had the funky socks sort of revolution that started across the world. And there were not too many brands in India who were selling funky socks. I know Happy Socks has just entered selling like 700, 800 rupee socks, which is of course not sort of, palatable to the Indian audience. And, even back then, Louis Philippe was one of the few brands who had pioneered these sort of, funky socks there. So we saw, this is sort of one sort of idea. I think Zoom car was the other idea because I think, both me and my co-founder Farooq enjoy driving, and every time we would sort of go out on a holiday, we would always rent a car. We said, why can't this sort of a mechanism be easier in India? And the second was on the payments front, actually, where we're trying to figure out how do we get digital payments in the physical space, and rather than this whole headphone jack with sort of Square pioneered with, at that time you didn't have lightning connectors on mobile phones and whatnot, and you had these large clunky POS machines which are still there. We said, can the phone be? I mean, so we actually even bought a domain name called Whistle Pay because we said that every phone has a microphone as well as a speaker, and can we use simple sound waves with different frequencies, different sort of waveforms in order to sort of transfer payments there. So we actually called it Whistle Pay as well. So we looked at that, and honestly, we haven't given up on that, but it's just that QR codes are here, so you don't really need Whistle Pay anymore. So it's just, I mean, a mix of those sort of things that we looked at.
ICICI did invest in a company called ToneTag. I think they use
ToneTag
technology.
Exactly.
I think they're also Bombay based.
Exactly. Also Bombay based too. That's right. Tony Tag was also there.
So no, I mean all exciting ideas have all gone on to be $1 million companies their own right.
Right.
So you have this hyper local phase that's going on, and you convinced your investors and the team that hey, this is the
That's
direction
right.
that we're going to go in, right? Um, and then the business continues to evolve over the next few years. And now if you
Right.
go to find.com, you'll find the whole omni-channel product and technology and suite of products that it has become, right?
Right.
Which is all in the SaaS domain, so to speak.
That's right.
So,
well, technically speaking, you might say that there is a SaaS domain, but one thing that we've stayed true to is always monetize the transaction. Yeah. So in sort of all the sort of platform products that we have, there's probably only one where we take a nominal fee upfront, which is the Find platform, which was also launched like a few months ago. But every other solution, we were always clear we want to monetize the transaction. We want to align our incentives with the sales that our clients do, or our customers do.
How do you then present that pitch to the client now, right? Because a lot of Indian clients are very jittery when it comes to giving up any piece of the transaction. So does the platform now support only Indian clients? And if yes, how do you convince them to give up?
So I think I would say a lot of credit goes to e-commerce, and the way the large marketplaces sort of initiated brands into getting, or let me say not getting, but collecting payments on behalf of the consumers, and then remitting post commissions back to the brands, and to show them that this is also a sales channel and a business model which works, right? And I think that sort of helped us go to the brands and say, hey, you know what? Here's now an additional sales channel. There's this technology stack which supports additional sales channels for you. Right? The additional sales channel could be a Myntra, an Amazon, a Flipkart, a Google Shopping. It could very well be your own, brand website, D2C website itself. It could be sort of endless aisle or an omni-channel platform as well. And these are all sort of sales channels built on this tech stack. Right? An IBM or an SAP or someone else will come to you selling this tech stack at a license fee model, multi-million-dollar, business, multiple, rolled out in phases. But we're giving you this tech stack as in the spirit of a SaaS solution, but we're monetizing it based on the transaction based on sales that you will do through this tech stack. Right? So we're going to front load a lot of our effort into actually doing this tech stack for you, for which we're not going to charge you upfront. But we're going to essentially ensure that we're partners with you as you go down this journey. And the other reason is because I think the tech stack is also evolving so frequently and rapidly right now that I cannot give you a 2-year deployment schedule like an SAP or an Oracle or a, sort of Microsoft will come and give you, right? It is a stack which is ever evolving. I own that stack. I will maintain and upgrade that stack. You are just use that to sort of add sales channels to your brand. And for every sale that happens, we will collect the payment on behalf of the consumer, either through your D2C website, through your in-store product, through Amazon, through Myntra, through Flipkart. We will take and cut our commissions, and we will remit you the rest just the way any other e-commerce marketplace does it, or just the way a payment gateway does it, essentially.
So ultimately, what you've convinced them of is, we will participate in your success, right?
Right.
That means only if you have a sale do we get paid, and you don't get paid otherwise. Is that how some of the transactions?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I think our newest product, which is Find platform, which is more targeted towards SMEs to help build their D2C websites. I think that's the only one where we have a 4,500 to 5,000 to a 10,000 monthly fee. But even there, a large part of our earnings comes on a commission on transaction.
So at the current scale, on your website, you say that there are about 600 brands under management. What has your learnings been like? Is there a certain threshold of a brand you need to qualify for the Find solution? Because I know a lot of
So,
companies now. They say, you know what, there's a company that only says, if you don't have more than 50 retail stores, I will not support you, because it's too much an effort for us, right? Because if you're putting the effort up front, like you're saying, where a SAP to solution will probably cost you a few crores, and this is zero, that means there's still an effort from your end, right? So how do you kind of balance that?
So, two things. I think one is we've got a very wide range of solutions now, right? So I think even if you don't have a store, you can still work with us to get hooked onto the marketplaces. You can work with us to sell on find.com. You can get hooked up to us to actually power your website as well. So if you have stores, you can additionally use the omni-channel part of the solution to actually link up your stores to your demand channels also, right? So we've got a wide variance in that. That's number one. Number two is that we don't do any customizations. And we're saying, here is my stack. This is how the stack is going to be. Right? I am at best going to take the effort in integrating your existing data sources into my stack, but I'm not going to customize my stack for you. I'm not going to deploy my stack within your premises. I'm not going to build additional services. I mean, beyond a reasonable limit, I'm not going to build additional services for you. And I'm not going to give you additional sort of hand holding unless you are of a particular size, right? So, for example, if you're a large brand having 300 stores, yes, I might go ahead and take the effort to actually build you microservices which will be better integrated into your systems. But if you're a small brand, yes, you can use a stack. There'll be limit to the customizations the customization and handholding that we'll be able to do for you. And that doesn't mean that you will not be able to get advantage or value out of our stack. You'll still be able to get that.
Yeah.
And as you scale, as we see you scale, we will continue to support you through that.
Because it's a slippery slope, right? The moment you're trying to create, specific solutions, it becomes a software company, an IT solutions company.
Yeah, that's right.
That's creating services.
You're right, but the specific solutions happen for brands like, say, a W or a Nike, or a Steve Madden, where we know that the brand has enough cachet in the market, where from day one of going live, we know we're able to hit about 1 crore business a month with them. So I think for them, we have the confidence of actually going ahead and doing that. But we also don't want to say no to brands where we know the potential can be much larger down the line.
But have you said no to brands where the requirements have been unreasonable?
So we've said no to customization, where we said no to brands saying, what, we're only going to do this much. And if you want to do additional things, the only way I can justify doing that is if I charge you additional commission on my transaction, right? So rather than a standard 25%, I'll charge you a 35 or 40%. If you're okay with that, I might go ahead and do that. If not, then I'm sorry. We don't have a business out here.
I see that a lot of the brands that you support on your website, the logos are all Reliance retail brands, right?
Yes.
And Reliance brands that Reliance.
So funny enough, all of those brands were actually onboarded with us in 2013.
Okay, they were one of the first sales.
So all of those brands independently were absolutely. In fact, the Diesel store in Palladium, which is a Reliance brand store, was the very first Shopsense deployment back in 2012. And it was independent of anything that could happen in the future between Fynd and Reliance.
That's crazy. So I think my question was like, now that you had worked with the Reliance brands, did that actually help, or did that?
Oh, without a doubt, it did.
Enable the sales?
No, absolutely, yes. I mean,
how did that culminate?
I'm sure that the guys. No, so I would say, I think the Reliance team independently reached out to us for this, to actually figure out a way to work together. But the fact that they knew that we were working with Reliance brands enabled them to pick up the phone and call their colleagues in Reliance brands to ask about us and, to sort of, get a good reference check on us. And, the fact that Reliance brands said, yes, we've been working with this team for a long time and we like this team, definitely helped in, smoothing the transaction per se. Without a doubt, I would say. I mean, for sure.
The validation is more authentic, right? Because they know that they're getting the right feedback. So in this journey, and you're still on the journey of making Find a larger kind of business. Um, can you help us understand what resulted in the exit, somewhat, to
Sure.
Reliance as an investor plus partner, and what is the future now with Reliance? Where do you
Sure.
guys go from here?
Right. So I think this is maybe about 2016, 2017, where I think we were doing, I mean, there was Find.com, which is the e-commerce marketplace. Of course, significant competition in the market at that time, with Jabong as well, Myntra, Amazon, Flipkart, the likes of Vunic, Craftsvilla, and, Shein, Club Factory. Everyone probably spending $1 million a month at the bare minimum to try and acquire consumers, right? And then we also had these suite of products which are slightly more SaaSy per se, but were highly profitable businesses there. I think it was 2016, 2017 when we realized that if we have to build this company large, I don't think there's independent venture capital available in that sort of droves to help us build this large company in today's generation. I mean, you had the likes of almost all VC investors who had either invested or burnt their hands with e-commerce, right? I mean, whether it was Vune, Craftsvilla, you had Sequoia who put in, I don't know how much ever, millions of dollars in both of these companies. Then you had the other guys who were somewhat in other e-commerce marketplaces, like the likes of Fashion in You, LimeRoad, whatnot. Right? I mean, there was just a whole plethora of them, right?
The graveyard,
we realized,
the graveyard of
right?
e-commerce in India is massive.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely, and actually, everyone was decently well funded by VCs, by like top tier VCs, right? So we knew early on that while we were surviving, we needed a large partner who would be more strategic in nature to actually help us with the next phase of the company. And actually, the answer to that for us was Google, right? So in about 2016, 2017, we got Google on board as an investor. And this was not Google Ventures, this was not Google Capital, this was Google out of its own balance sheet. And this is Google Inc., right?
Wow.
And it was their global shopping team which actually sort of did the investment in us. So we were actually like very, very happy with saying that yes, now we've got a partner who is a strategic partner, a global partner, who believes in the vision of the omni-channel in sort of retail panning out, not just in India but sort of across the world, right? So you were very happy with sort of Google coming on board, and we thought this was going in the right direction. A year within, actually not a year, probably technically 8 months within Google coming on board, we had Reliance also reach out to us and said, hey, you know what, we also want to do this thing with you. And with Google was a minority investor in the company. And we would have loved to have Google on board for a longer period of time as well. And I think Google Shopping's priorities were very different back in sort of 2019. And they were still focusing on the US and then maybe France, Germany, Japan, and whatnot. But I think India was there yet, but not sort of a large focus area. Google Pay had a large focus area of India, but not really Google Shopping per se. And then Reliance came knocking and said, hey, you know what, we want to do this association with you guys, but we won't be any other investor on your cap table. We would want to be the only investor on your cap table, right? So we worth talking to you guys, and they said we'll give returns to all your investors, including Google, and we will give you independence of sort of operations, independence of business, independence of your roadmap, your team, culture, everything, as long as you help us with your omni-channel expertise as we embark on our omni-channel business as well, right? As long as that is working out well, we have no reason to rock your boat. You can continue with your clients, you can continue with your business lines, we can continue with your products. We have no reason to complain. But as long as you give us support and expertise on the way you build your omni-channel, we're more than happy to do that. And we went to them saying that, hey, you know what, we don't want to be acquired, right? Because we believe there's still a lot of juice left out here. So Reliance was happy to not do an acquisition, was happy to acquire all the investors, and come on board with a primary and secondary, and allow us to sort of build our business the way we wanted to build it. So you mentioned in your first line that we got acquired by Reliance, but technically that's not true. Reliance has acquired a majority stake in the company, but the company is still pretty much independent, independently run and independently held as well.
Oh, fantastic. I tried to correct my sentence there, but I'm
Right.
glad you fixed it now.
Right.
Today, if you look at Facebook, I mean, now we're talking about the biggies here. With Insta shopping and Facebook shopping, there is a real push towards commerce as a category. Because of the
Right.
tools that they have on these platforms to sell, and the Instagram shopping experience is completely blowing my mind, right? Like just the way in which they have very seamlessly integrated that experience, right? With gestures, with the way you can see pricing, you can discover a new products,
Right.
and anybody can do it, not just a brand, right? It's even more mind blowing because you can be an affiliate, selling something of a brand, and you can basically weave all of that into it, right?
Right.
How do you see the commerce kind of playing out? In
So
I guess the next decade or so.
So you know what I think there's been an explosion of channels through which consumers are consuming products, and I meant consuming, it's both a mix of content as well as sort of shopping as well, right? I mean, it's no longer just the Myntra Jabongs that are there, right? Along with the Amazons and the Flipkarts and the Mintras, you have the Instagrams, the Pinterests, and the Googles. You also have the D2C brands with their own websites coming up. You have probably a Cred, which is also a large commerce company also today.
Yeah.
Right? Um, who knows? Maybe it'll be a very large commerce. So YouTube could be a great commerce sort of funnel as well, right? So we're seeing an explosion in terms of the way consumers are sort of getting access to products and where they are transacting and purchasing products. I think if you see all of those things, that will continue to expand. So if I were in the space, I cannot just say, hey, I'm going to be one channel for the consumer, because I'll be losing out on such a large variety of sort of demand there. The call that we as Fynd have taken is that we understand and we accept that the number of these channels is only going to increase. But if we can become the stack which allows brand to seamlessly plug into all of those channels through just one pipe, we want to be that pipe, right? So even the Instagrams of the world and the Google shoppings need access to supply. They need access to inventory availability information to take the order, and they need access to partners who will ship that order as well, right? They're essentially just doing the first sort of consumer engagement piece, but the whole commerce stack and the commerce engine that runs behind that, whether it be content, inventory, pricing, discounting, fulfillment, returns management, all of that still needs to be fit in. So we're saying that we recognize that there are these consumption or discovery channels that are coming in, but there still needs to be a commerce engine that needs to run and support all of these discovery channels, and that's a sort of the Fynd sort of stack comes in there.
So what you're saying is that people can do whatever they want at the front end,
right? The back end could be fine. The back end will be fine.
So now all transactions flow through Fynd, and you're basically the pickaxe and shovels for miners, right? So they have to use
absolutely
this. So you participate in every single transaction, and you're an e-commerce enabler,
right? I mean, I just wouldn't say e-commerce enabler. I would say commerce enabler, because there are a bunch of things that we're doing on the offline stores as well. So there is, I mean, there also we also anticipate that the store formats are going to be ever changing, right? There's not always going to be a big box retailer. There's not always going to be a departmental store. There's not always going to be a single brand, exclusive brand outlet. You're going to have these, express stores. You're going to have these stations. But even there, you need access to inventory. You need access to payments. You need access to discounting. You need access to customer information. So we're saying across the commerce spectrum, wherever discovery is happening, whether it's online or offline, we want to be the commerce engine that's sort of supporting all of it.
Fantastic. which I'm sure you'll take Fynd to greater heights with the backing of a powerful, partner in Reliance. Um, Harsh, I've been hearing that you've also been investing in startups. Um, with the millions you've made from your Reliance sale.
Yes, I have.
With the multi-millions you made from your Reliance exit.
Millions of rupees for sure. Millions of rupees, I would say. No, I think definitely yes.
What's your current interest in startups, and what kind of founders are you backing?
So I think the interest is simply backing great teams, right? Backing great teams who have a very large vision and ambition, and who you trust will do the right thing to sort of make that impact there. Of course, a large amount of my investing is at a super early stage, which is usually the first time the company is getting invested in. But that's not to say that I've not, participated in later rounds as well. Because, like I said, at the end of the day, if a founder is sort of allowing me to partner and to support them, as long as it's a great founder, great product, great business, I don't mind, coming in at any point of time, right? I think I've been sector agnostic completely. I think I've done deals in healthcare, education, consumer products, in sort of retail, in fintech, in SaaS, across the board, because it just comes down to good founders attacking a large problem with a large market with the honesty of sort of effort and sort of intellectual honesty, right? So
any companies you should be looking out for?
Oh, I think all of them, right? Why not? Should be looking out for all of those companies. But I think some of the ones which have sort of broken out so far have been. I think one is Chayos. I think they got a good gig going in terms of the chai chains across Delhi, Bombay, and now Indore as well. So definitely Chayos is one of the sort of early breakouts there. Then you've got Trell, which is in the short video format space. So they're doing a bunch of content and commerce put together. Then there's a company called Bizongo, which does packaging material for e-commerce. They've done decently well as well. So many companies in this sort of portfolio right now. There's a company called Pernia's Pop-Up Shop, which is doing well in the sort of designer label sort of e-commerce segment, as well as offline stores too. So I think I'm at 18 or 19 right now in terms of my portfolio. But like I said, all of them have been super early stage, and it's not done. Of course, financial returns are hopefully part and parcel of it, but it's about working with founders and entrepreneurs. We had a large group of angel investors which supported us, and I just want to sort of be continue to be part of that ecosystem and supporting founders building great companies.
No, I've at least met a few of the startups that you referred to. Fantastic products. I worked a little closely with the Trell team recently. Phenomenal.
Yes. Oh, interesting.
Right. So if a founder wants to reach out to you, how would they do that, and why should they do it?
I think very simply, I think they can reach out to me for any reason, honestly, right? They can reach out to me for help with funding, help with investors, help with organization structuring, help with talent acquisition, help with, product market fit, you want a beta user for your product. Happy to do any of those things. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or on email. Happy to sort of, spend time with any founder whatsoever. I may not respond to all founders, but I definitely read every single email and sort of LinkedIn message that I get.
I can attest to that. Harsh is extremely responsive, great guy. So if you're looking for a first investor in your company, don't forget to
absolutely
say hi. I think you accept most LinkedIn requests, I believe.
I accept all LinkedIn requests. All. I wouldn't say most. I would say all.
Fantastic. Harsh, thanks for taking the time and taking us through the journey of Fynd and what you've been up to.
Likewise, Varun.
Yeah. And
likewise, it's always a pleasure.
Cheers.